This video will give some general information on how to create graphs and edit them in Google Sheets. The first thing that you'll need to do is create a graph. Highlight your data, including all the labels, and then either click Insert Chart, or you can click on these three little dots here and click on the chart graphic there. So Insert Chart. And we'll see that we get a graph here that has a title that we probably don't want, and it has our data labeled on it. Occasionally, you'll need to play with switching the rows and the columns. Let's say you put your data in a different way, you might have to toggle with this button, but we obviously don't want that. It won't give us anything usable. So we'll go back. I will be using column A as labels. That makes sure it's not plotted, but it's down here on the x-axis. You'll see if I click that off, then I get year 2000, and this doesn't make any sense. So we need to use column A as a label, as well as use row 1 as headers. So if I take that off, we lose our labels for the lines over here. You'll keep that on, and you'll see here that it's labeled properly. The next thing you might want to do is change your chart type. Google does a good job of guessing how you want your data graphed, but you might not want it graphed as a line graph. You could want it as something else. So you'll be able to find that under Data, Chart Type here, and then maybe you want it shaded in. Or maybe you don't want a line graph, you want columns. Or you want a pie chart. These are all the places where you can choose the best one. Because my data is over time, I'm going to choose a line graph. Next, you'll want to customize your graph. Click over to Customize to do so. The first thing you can customize is your chart style. You could change the background. You could change the font. You could change the font if you really wanted to. You can make all your lines smooth, so they're smooth on the top. You can maximize it where it's in the entire space. I would not recommend doing that, and so on and so forth. So that's what you can do with chart style. There's chart and axis titles. This is definitely one you want to look into. The first thing you'll want to change is the title of your chart. The title of your chart should be something that's kind of long. It should give the viewer a complete idea of what the graph is charting. So in this, we're looking at how much life there is in 1 year. This is data I made up. I'll make this number of individuals, because that applies to both people and dogs. You can see it on the side there. So now my chart is properly labeled. And I will turn that off. The next thing you'll want to manipulate is the series. The only thing that you'll really want to manipulate on here is maybe the line thickness. Maybe you want it a little bit thinner. Maybe you want a little bit thicker. If you have data points on there and you want them labeled, like I could put a star or a circle to denote a point on the graph, and then I could also change how large that is. The other thing that you'll want to do on here is trend lines. So this will give you a trend line for each of your pieces of data. You'll see here in series where it says apply to all series. Anything you do here will apply to all the data sets that you have. So both people and dogs in this case. So I could put a trend line on and you'll see a trend line appear for both people and dog. But let's for instance say that I only want a trend line for dogs. So I click apply to dogs and I click trend line. That will give me a trend line just for dogs. And then I can change how transparent it is, what my line thickness is. And most importantly, when you're doing trend lines, you'll most likely want an equation for the trend line. That's under label. Use equation. And this will be the equation for the trend line. After I've turned on a trend line, I can turn that one off. We can go to legend. Here you can change the legend if you would like. Maybe you want the legend at the top, like so. Gives your graph a little bit more room there. And I could change the size of the font of my legend if I wanted to. I want it really large so people can read it. The next thing you might want to do is under horizontal axis. So there's a couple things you can do here. For instance, you can treat the labels as text, and that will give you all the years down below. You could also reverse the axis order. Let's say that this was put in descending years. I could switch that around and now it's how I want it. So it's usually something you can do. You can do a slant on a label. Maybe I want it 90 degrees, so it's straight up and down. Or I want it 30 degrees. It's up to you. The last thing you may want to do is just for aesthetics is change the grid lines. Maybe you want more grid lines on it. Maybe I want 10. So I get more numbers on the side here, and I want 10 minor grid lines. So that is a general overview of how to get some data out of graphing on Google Sheets.